Welcome back to the F1 show, sponsored by Audi. Lucky to have Martin Brundle with myself, Bernie and Ted this week. So, Martin, let's get into it. And Max Verstappen's weekend, obviously another unbelievable pole position. I think the thing you can say about him this year is that the tiniest mistake, and I think Lando made one or was it Oscar made one in turn one?
This F1 moment shows why Max is in a league of his own. Check this video out.
Lando made one in turn 17 in qualifying, and he jumped on that, and it was nigh on perfect lap, as we saw in Suzuka from Max. But ultimately, the pace wasn't there on the Sunday, and he finished a whopping, 39 seconds behind Oscar Piastri. So there's problems, but he's not being as openly critical as we've seen in the past. Obviously, congratulations to him on the birth of his daughter, Lily. Had that in the back of his mind all weekend. But where do you stand on Max and his position? He just seems to be very pragmatic. This is the best I can do with the car at the moment, but that car is not good enough, obviously, to challenge the McLarens.
Yeah, it seems to be the same story, doesn't it? Friday, this car won't turn, won't brake, it's got no grip. They work. And then he pulls the magic out in qualifying and sticks it on pole, just to remind everybody how good he is. And there are very few people in the Formula One paddock that would argue with you that anything other than that he's the best out there at the moment. He's extraordinary. He's got it all together. But his car's not, if you took Max out of the Red Bull at the moment, where do you think they are? Are they fourth or fifth fastest? Probably, if you took Max out of that equation.
Max's composure this season has been next level, especially with life changes like becoming a father. His maturity and focus on extracting the maximum, even when the car can't match McLaren, shows just how much he's evolved as a complete driver.
I mean, it's a punchy thing to say, but he's driving beautifully, and I don't think having a child will make any difference whatsoever. We're a pretty selfish bunch, racing drivers, and you're focused, got your blinkers on in the car. And, I had kids when I was in two wonderful children in Charlie and Alex. And you almost, ticking a box where you think, yeah, okay, if the worst happens, there's there's lineage there, sort of thing. It's not going to slow you down. And it certainly hasn't slowed him down. But he can only pick the car up and carry it so long. And when the tyres go off, he then, as soon as he got passed by Oscar, he was moaning about the balance and the grip and what have you. And I think that was sheer frustration on his part. And that's just the way it is. He can deliver the magic. And the McLaren clearly isn't quite there on a single lap. Both drivers make a lot of mistakes, small, tiny mistakes, but the car's a bit flighty on low fuel, and then it's brilliant on the longer runs.
What stands out is Max's ability to deliver brilliance even as the car fades beneath him. That frustration on the radio isn't weakness. It's the hallmark of a driver who refuses to settle for less. His push for perfection is what keeps Red Bull punching above its weight.
And those two things are probably, almost certainly linked, I would say. But Max is in there just getting the job done. When was I'm trying to think at the weekend, when was the last time, other than in combat, we saw Max make a mistake and crash? And I think it might be that Hungarian Grand Prix when he was going to the grid and it started to rain.
Yeah.
Sorry?
In COVID, wasn't it?
Ted, maybe you can remember something, but I can't think of the last time Max actually threw it in the wall. I think I remember saying something he was walking out of a gravel trap a year or two ago, and I remember saying in commentary, God, that's so unusual, actually see Max having made an error. And he's extraordinarily consistent and with his feet.
I mean, there was a qualifying session where he said, I bleeped it, didn't he? He said I think he made a mistake. That was his one radio message to GP. But he doesn't. No, I mean, he's ferociously competitive. And yeah, you're right, Simon. It was the Verstappen was 39.9 seconds, almost 40 seconds off Piastri at the end.
You could take 10 off that
because
he didn't get the VSC cheap pit stop.
But they're still so competitive in that that protest as well. And I saw this happening. So as I was waiting for Christian Horner off the pit wall, first thing he did was go and look at the race trace, and they were enlarging Russell's race trace.
Max's consistency isn't just impressive, it's historic. When you can barely remember the last time a world champion made a major unforced error, you know you're watching someone special. His focus, even when the car struggles, keeps Red Bull constantly in play. This level of execution is why his rivals have to be near perfect just to challenge him, no matter the machinery.
And Bernie, you can pick up on how they would have been able to see that his net speed over that yellow flag section wouldn't have been much slower, or as slower maybe as it should have been. And that's what prompted them. And he was in a real hurry, Christian. Did we play out the interview with Christian after the race, Simon, when you could see he was...
remember hearing from him.
He was edging to go, well, I did it. So maybe they didn't play it out because he was so keen to get away. I was always walking with him towards the edge of the garage as he was sort of saying, what had happened. And as it turned out, having just looked at the race trace, he was going with Stephen Knowles, who is the second-headed replacement of Jonathan Wheatley as the rules guy, with Rich Wolverson as pit crew. Stephen Knowles is the rules man. He was going with him to type up the protest, try and get Russell a penalty, which they already had in mind when they told Max to stay within 5 seconds of him, which I just like. I just like the competitiveness. They're still competitive. Max is still competitive, and he'll stay in the championship, won't he?
What stands out here is how deeply Max is involved in the chess match beyond the track. He's not just a driver, he's part of the team's strategy machine, pushing for every protest, every second, every penalty window. That relentless edge is what makes him such a powerful force. Even when the car falters, Max's determination keeps the pressure on his rivals.
I think the thing for me is Max's driving is obviously very impressive, and the lack of mistakes is equally as impressive. But whenever you see him pick up on these little things from other drivers, whether they've missed a yellow flag, whether they've cut the corner, whether, all these things that he's picking up that are extra to his normal race and extra to the lap he's doing, that really sets him apart. And you listen to his radio comms, he's doing the strategy for himself and some other drivers around. He's fully on it. And that's someone who's driving so within his capacity. It's really difficult to comprehend all of the information he's taken in and then fit to still come out with quite intelligent answers. He missed out on the VSC, which put him behind Russell. I wonder how tricky the Red Bull is in dirty air, because, as Martin said, when Piastri got past, straight away losing significant lap time, and not able to make a move on Russell, or trying to hold the gap to Russell in that second stint. I think Max could have done better had Russell not emerged in front of him. I think in that final stint, I think it wouldn't have been the full amount of time from the McLarens. But to have that oversight of what's going on totally around him and be on top of his regulations is very impressive. What they'll be doing on the Red Bulls, they're probably looking at a speed overlay of the lap rather than the race trace. They're probably looking at to see from GPS.
Max's ability to absorb everything happening around him, from strategy calls to rivals' track limits, is nothing short of remarkable. While the car may struggle in dirty air, especially behind Russell, Max's oversight ensures Red Bull squeezes every possible advantage. This isn't just talent behind the wheel, it's situational awareness that few in F1 history have matched.
They can see a car's speed through every section of the track, every corner, to see if he dropped any time. Now, what Mercedes will have come back with is the proper car telemetry, where it shows the brake and the accelerating, and you only need to show a very small lift in order for it to have been a lift. So it might even be something that doesn't necessarily show up as well in the GPS as you would like. Russell's also an excellent driver, so he knows he can do it. And sometimes, he knows, drivers know what they can get away with and what they can't get away with. So I think Russell will have been pretty sure, Mercedes will have been pretty sure from the data they have, which will be more than what Red Bull have for their own car in order to defend that. But it is impressive, the fight. And I'm always, when you see a driver taking in what's going on around him and giving out this very valuable information in the pit wall, that's astonishing.
Bernie, seeing you on my screen, did you see your movie stunt double was in the commentary box in Miami?
I did, yes.
Yeah, with
Is there
so
a striking
alike.
resemblance? Is there a resemblance? Are they exactly the same?
Massively so, yeah. Yeah, sorry, that was an aside. Where were we?
No, it's fine. What we all say is that that there was a new floor, obviously, for Max during this race. Yuki, we understand, will get it for Imola, so it didn't make too much of a difference, finishing 39 seconds behind. But just a two-pronged one to you, Martin, because actually we've discussed this on the podcast with Bernie and Ted over the last few weeks on the subject of the TD for Spain. How big a thing do we anticipate that being? McLaren have played it down and Ferrari have played it down with regards to the technical directive to do with the stiffness of the front wing. And the other thing is George on that very subject, in that he has said ultimately he has optimized every single week the race result. And even in a car which he was struggling with this weekend, he still managed to take a podium. Yes, he was lucky where Max was unlucky on the virtual safety car, but he's driving his socks off, isn't he?
Russell may be maximizing his car, but Max is maximizing an entire team under pressure. The ability to deliver sharp insights to the pit wall, even mid-race, shows how complete a driver Max has become. As the front-wing directive comes into play and rivals like Ferrari downplay its impact, expect Max to remain the driver most capable of adapting and exploiting any advantage.
He is. He had a stomach cramp as well, didn't he, at the end? George didn't make it to the press conference. He's driving beautifully. And he hasn't got a contract for next year that we know about at the moment, which feels strange. Although when I speak to Mercedes about that, they remind me that they're not only are they his current employers, they're his management team as well. So George is driving beautifully and grabbing everything that's available. If they can find a 10.42 and close the gap to McLaren, he'll be right there. So what was the other question, Si?
It was on the technical directive that we're going to get for Spain, and is that going to be actually what defines the championship? If McLaren stay this far ahead after that, are we thinking, okay, then we are into the inter-team battle?
George's drive, even with a stomach cramp, was gutsy and deserving of praise. But Max's relentless consistency over the years has set an even higher bar. As the Spain technical directive approaches, teams are hoping for a reshuffle that might dent Red Bull's dominance. Yet Verstappen has repeatedly shown an uncanny ability to adapt to new rule environments, keeping his rivals under pressure. McLaren's recent leap forward is impressive, but Max's blend of pace, strategy, and mental resilience remains unmatched. Russell may be maximizing his car, but Verstappen maximizes his entire weekend, from free practice data to post-race debriefs. That's why even when Red Bull has an off weekend, Max keeps himself firmly in the title conversation. It's championship DNA on full display.